Hey guys, Civilord here, back with another action figure review. And today, we're taking a look at the Masterverse Vintage Collection Wal-Mart exclusive. OGs. To give you a nice long OGsm there, because today we're taking a look at the Lord of Destruction, Skeletor. The man, the myth, the legend himself. The pain in He-Man's rear since 1982. 82, right? It is 83. Either way, this of course brought to us by the, we'll say, fine folks over at Mattel, because this figure is actually really good. There are a couple things about it that I'm like, really? But the rest, pretty good. The first thing I'm scratching my head about is the fact that this seems to be a Walmart exclusive thing. Like, why would you essentially make new Masters Classics a Walmart exclusive thing? Walmart sucks. 8 times out of 10. Now, sometimes they do pull through, but most of the time they don't. Take into account trying to pre-order Mattel stuff from Walmart. That usually goes south rather quickly. I know some people have had trouble getting a hold of this guy. Thankfully, he was in stock on the app. I was able to pick one for me up, as well as my good buddy Evil Villain, so we're covered. Both of them were fine. That's all hunky-dory. That said, the Zodak is sold out, and I know people have been having trouble with him. Faker's going up as the time of this recording soon. When this video goes up, he should be listed on Walmart, but I don't know if you'll be able to purchase him. And then I guess there's an Evelyn and a Stratos coming amidst whoever else, because, well, this line is super random with the character selection. But essentially, if you have the 40th He-Man, this is a good counterpart to that. That's why I got it. If I only have this guy in that He-Man, which I actually did a head swap with the Dolph Lundgren 87 movie He-Man. He came with a more standard He-Man head, so I swapped that on because it looked better. I'm going to be set. I don't need another He-Man line that's just more of the same. Like, I have a lot of Masters Classics, thanks to Evil Villain, funny enough. And, you know, I got this guy and I got the 40th He-Man. I think that's enough. I don't really feel the need to have more, but if I can get them, I will get them. So, with that being said, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, why don't we cut right to the chase, get to the meat and taters of this review, and take a look-see at all Skeletor has to offer in terms of accessories, starting off with a pair of alt hands. He's got the open hand and the fist hand. Now, it would have been nice if we got 2 open hands and 2 fist hands, since these are probably going to be reused with a lot of figures. But they do have the nice big thick pegs on them, so his hands at least won't be loose. And not for nothing, this hand can actually grip onto some accessories, like this power sword, for example. You can actually, well, this isn't a good example because this handle's smaller, but you can almost use this as a grip hand with a sword. But what you can use it for a grip hand with is the Havoc Staff. It will sit in there and not fall out. Woo! As I totally flip things over. But essentially, you can totally use this hand to grip the Havoc Staff if you want. Now, granted, I'm not the best at finagling, but, you know, it's sitting sideways and it's not falling out, so that's something. But taking a look at the Havoc Staff, it's a new mold, I think. I don't believe the ram skull's been used before. It's a nice PVC, too. The handle is harder plastic. I wish the head could turn. It appears to be glued, which does kind of suck, because you can't. All the other Havoc Staffs have been, at this point, like, you could rotate the head, but this guy, that's not happening. Like, I've tried. If anything, I think I might have just cracked some glue. But yeah, that's not happening. And that sucks, because he's got like some schmutz on this side of the staff where it came out the mold, and it'd be nice to flip this head around so that way you don't see it. Like literally, there's a slit right there. And it's on both of them too. And there was no wire here, so I don't know why that is. But at any rate, that's kind of janky. So, you know, that's something you McFarlane DC Multiverse simps can look forward to when Mattel gets a DC license back. Taking a closer look at Skeletor here, the Lord of Destruction himself. Decent sculpt, you know. I think Mattel does a pretty good job with the sculpts. I don't recognize this body. It could very well be the 40th He-Man body with the kind of fin forearms and the Skeletor boots. I think the loincloth probably the same. It is softer this time around. I do kind of wish this piece was attached to the loincloth as opposed to being a floaty belt. Granted, it does get out of the way in case they make like a vintage collection Panther. I would imagine that would be Mattel Creations more so than anything. Could always put them on the New Eternia Panther, but I don't know why you do that. It's not New Eternia. And then he's got his traditional Skeletor armor up here. And he does have the tabs on the back. Now, I do fasten mine all the way, so it's nice and snug on there. It's pretty loose out of package. But one thing that I don't get is, number one, no hinged jaw. Battle Armor Skeletor had a hinged jaw. That weird monkey face one with the throne had a hinged jaw. This one, no hinged jaw. Like, I'm pulling on it. It's not opening, so that kind of sucks. Because he can't be all, until we meet again, and run off screen. That's lame. So, boo on you for that one, Mattel. But the other thing that I don't get, he's got the dated torso joint. So it's basically a crunch forward and back. Very minimal, might I add. And some tilt. There is no rotation up here. I mean, I guess you kind of get a spring-loaded power punch. Kind of, sort of. But that freaking sucks. So we're going backwards with articulation here, if anything. And you do still get your waist twist, and that's nice and tight. But I want my updated torso joints, dagnabbit. And the Throne Skeletor had this too, so I don't know if maybe because this is a dated body they're using. Like, this is probably the 40th He-Man's torso. It feels just like it. Maybe that's why it has the dated torso joint. But the thing I don't get, he's got the dated torso joint, but if we pop his arm up, you know what else he's got? Drop down hips. I could have lived without those, man. So, yeah, very strange decisions were made here. Very inconsistent with the rest of the Masterverse line. Like, I don't have him in hand yet, but I'm hoping the New Eternia Beastman, Roboto, and King Randor don't have this going on, because this torso joint sucks. But yeah, very, very odd. Very odd. But as far as the rest of his articulation goes, his head does rotate. I will say, I did have to file down quite a bit of schmutz on the peg for this guy, because it was just all kinds of crazy from when it came out the mold. So his head turns easy now, but before it kind of was twisting on that peg a bit. Well, nobody wants that, do they? His shoulders can pop out to the side, back down. They rotate forward and back. Those are tight enough. He's got a bicep swivel, double elbow. That works fine. Hinder because of the fins, but that's expected. He's got swivel hinge wrists with the wrong hinge for holding weapons, dagnabbit. But whatever. We already went over the torso. We already went over the drop down hit. But if I pop this up, you can get perfect splits without it. Back down, forward and back. Nothing loose there. Thigh cut is the thigh cut. Works just fine. Double jointed knee. Nice and tight. Nothing too crazy. Boot cut is a boot cut. And then his foot will hinge back. Forward. And has a rocker with peg holes at the bottom of the feet. He's got the clawed feet with the basically monster boots going on. Nothing that'd make Gene Simmons of Kiss jealous, but He does have these monster boot feet going on, just like the vintage figure. Curious if they would ever do like a running change with like the half boot, because for something like this, that feels kind of stupid. But at any rate, that is Skeletor from the Vintage Collection in a nutshell. As a nutshell? What the heck? You know, a decent figure. He does actually have weapon storage on the back for his sword there, so if you want to stow that there, you can. But a decent figure. I don't know if he's going to be Figure of the Year or anything, because I'm really anticipating that New Eternia Beastman. Not only because he's New Eternia, and I love that subline, but he also has a whip that's not just a rope, and jaw articulation, which is crazy. That Beastman got it, and his boss here didn't. So, with that being said, speaking of New Eternia, why don't we bust out a couple of New Eternia versions of Skeletor, because it is time now that we move right along and take a look at some size comparisons. First up, and as promised, here is good old Vintage Collection Skeletor, alongside a couple of New Eternia versions of the Lord of Destruction himself. We have a Barbarian Skeletor, as well as Battle Armor Skeletor, or as I like to call him, Viking Metal Skeletor, because you wouldn't mess with that in a mosh pit, now would you? That said, he goes for quite the chunk of change on the aftermarket nowadays, whereas Barbarian Skeletor I think you can still pick up on clearance at some online retailers, so try and figure that one out. That said, I do find it kind of hilarious that Barbarian Skeletor is the shortest, Vintage Collection is the monkey in the middle, and Battle Armor Skeletor is the biggest. That said, since he is wearing all that armor, I guess that just makes sense now, does it? Now, personally, I think Battle Armor is probably the coolest. I mean, like I said, you wouldn't mess with that in the mosh pit now, would you? But I do like aspects of both the Vintage Collection and the Barbarian Skeletor. I feel like if you tossed them in a blender, gave them both the updated torso articulation, you have the perfect New Eternia / Vintage Collection style Skeletor, in my opinion. Maybe I'd just like to see this Vintage Collection one with a cape, but I digress. So moving these two out of the way, so we can make way for our two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibulus and the infamous 11 Spawn, who probably going to be neck and neck. He's a little teensy weensy bit taller than Skeletor, but not enough to be towering, we'll say. So with that being said, it's time now that we wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, and aside from the sheer lack of any jaw articulation and the fact that we seem to be going backwards as far as torso articulation in this line is concerned, really hope this is not a normal thing moving forward. I have to tell you that I thoroughly enjoy this Vintage Collection version of the Lord of Destruction himself, good old Skeletor, because while I do believe we have better Skeletors in the Masterverse line, that Battle Armor one being a pretty good example, it doesn't hurt to go back to basics and get a straight up classic version of a classic character, and this guy is no exception to that. Will he be one of my top figures of the year? Well, at this point, I don't have New Eternia Beastman, so that's up in the air, but I'd say he has a pretty good chance of being one of my top Masterverse figures of the year, if nothing else. But can we please get this Vintage Collection line away from Wal-Mart sooner rather than later, because I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to nail this guy or not. Thankfully I did, but it's up in the air whether or not I'll be able to do that with Zodak, or Faker, or Evelyn, or Stratos, or whoever they've showed from this line already. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.